Welcome back. We have another historical marker to take a look at for today's Throwback Thursday.
Joining us now is Lori Kent with the Local Lou podcast to talk about grasshoppers today.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually was recently at the restaurant Watchable, and I was waiting for my fry bread taco. They have tons of amazing history on their walls. Specifically, what jumped out at me was this quote from Sitting Bull, and it was about a vision that Sitting Bull had, and it said that the soldiers were as thick as grasshoppers. And I thought, if you don't know about the grasshopper invasion, that quote's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
So, in Spellerberg Park, right here in Sioux Falls, is a historical marker for the 1870s Grasshopper invasion. Yeah, so we'll hop into it. And it talks about how in 1873 and for 4 consecutive summers here in the Midwest was invaded by grasshoppers. Now, Sioux Falls specifically, 1874 and 1876 are going to be the hardest hit years. And these grasshoppers, when they showed up, they were hungry. So they ate everything. They ate crops, and once they got through those, they would eat parts of your house, your tools, your clothes. Anything that was there. And the hoppers were also famous. They end up in a Laura Ingalls Wilder book on the banks of Plum Creek, where she talks about coming in from outside and their clothes would be full of grasshoppers. And she talks about Ma shoveling up dead grasshoppers and throwing them into the fire. So there's enough to shovel, which is frightening. This invasion, this locust apocalypse of grasshoppers left a lot of pioneers penniless, though, because we have farmers that are just trying to make it out in the wild prairie, and their crops are being destroyed year after year. And that's how that historical marker ends up in Spellerberg Park, because the first owner of that land was a pioneer trying to make it happen, and he lost all of his money from his crops being destroyed by grasshoppers. People said that it sounded like thousands of scissors cutting all at once when these clouds would descend upon the city.
Wow.
Yeah, this whole historical marker makes me itchy.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy that that's not something that we learn about in school.
Exactly, yeah.
Because that sounds like it had a huge impact on the Midwest.
A huge impact, from every aspect of it. Like, you didn't have to be a farmer to be impacted by a swarm of grasshoppers.
Yeah.
It's going to affect your daily life.
Yeah.
Honestly, wow. And so I guess, what do you think inspired the historical marker for this, and kind of where do you think that came to be?
That's such a great question. I feel like this historical marker was just a necessity. Like, I don't think it's a history that people know off of the top of their heads. So it's one of those really good ones that it's like just informational. So informational, it's like, wow, I want to know more about that.
And since that's happened, it hasn't happened again. It was just random.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Right?
So supposedly the Rocky Mountain grasshopper, which is also a locust, supposedly it went extinct in 1902. So now we just fingers crossed that it stays that way.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
We don't
No
need
thanks.
that. I would have it. That's a nightmare, actually.
Definitely. Yes.
And if somebody wanted to learn more about this, how could they do so?
Sure. There's actually an episode of the Local Lou podcast on the 1870s Grasshopper invasion, and you can check it out at localloupodcast.com.
Perfect.
Thank you for being here this morning,
Thank you.
Lori.
Yeah.